My name is Andrew Rollis, and I wanted to show you how to make a perfect baklava. And with the help of my cousin and her husband, Linda and Brad Newman, we're going to put together a video for you. And we're going to use for the filo dough 1 pound of filo. They have thicker and thinner filo dough, but I like the 20 sheets per pound. 1 pound of unsalted butter, 1 pound of English walnuts, finely or coarsely ground cinnamon, and ground cloves. You also need to make a syrup. For the syrup, we're going to use 3 cups of sugar, 2½ cups of water, 1/4 cup of honey, 1 stick of cinnamon, and 12 whole cloves. The syrup is 3 cups of sugar, 1/4 cup of honey, a stick of cinnamon, and about a dozen cloves. And we're going to put 2½ cups of water. I'll bring this to a boil and then I'll put it down to simmer for about 15 minutes. I'm going to take the spices out, and then I'm going to add the juice of ½ lemon and ½ an orange, and simmer that until it comes to a thick syrup. Not as thick as honey, but thick like you would find maybe in a canned fruit, a thick syrup like that. I basically can tell when it coats the spoon, then I know that I've got it at the thickness I want. Now the syrup is beginning to boil. I'm going to lower it to simmer for 15 minutes. It's been about 15 minutes on simmer for the syrup, and I'm going to take the spices out. I don't want it to get too strong, a spicy taste. So I've got all the spices out, and we're going to use the juice of ½ lemon and ½ an orange. I'm going to strain it because I want to get the pulp out of it. I don't want the pulp in the syrup, and sometimes it will. We're going to add this to here and let it simmer some more till it forms a thick syrup that you would have, for example, in canned fruit. Okay. I think the syrup is now ready, and I want to show you how I kind of tested it. It's a nice amber color, as you can see. And it looks like to me it is leaving a slight layer on the spoon when I do it. So to me it's about the right thickness. I'm going to take it off the fire and cool it down and refrigerate it overnight before I use it on the baklava. But the best way to do it is to make your syrup a day before. But if you don't think you can do that and you want to make it all in one day, you could probably want to make your syrup first, get it cooled down in the refrigerator, maybe put it in a shallow pan so it cools faster. But you want a cold syrup to put over the baklava when it comes out of the oven. I use a 9 by 13 inch pan. It fits the filo dough perfectly. A sheet of filo dough is probably about 13 inches across, so when you fold it over, you get 2 layers for each sheet of filo dough. The filo dough I use is 20 sheets per pound. If you use a thinner one, which is maybe 28 sheets per pound, it's a little harder to work with. If you use a thicker one, it doesn't quite have the right texture. Usually the thicker one is used for making like a tiropita or a spanakopita or some kind of a filo pie rather than a baklava. I'm going to explain that I have these 2 pans, but I prefer this one. This is a non-stick, but when I'm using it, the filo dough often will slip in here, so it's just a little better to use this one. It just seems to adhere to the pan better. I'm going to preheat the oven at 325. First we're going to melt the butter, and 1 pound of butter, so we'll put that in here and go from there. when you get your filo dough, it'll probably come frozen, and what you'll need to do is thaw it out the way the instructions say on the sheet. And what you'll need to do then is thaw it in the refrigerator, usually overnight, and then it's ready to use. And well, filo dough, some people find very tricky to use and work with because it can dry out very quickly. And I know the manufacturers of the frozen filo dough suggest you put a damp tea towel over it. But if you work fast enough, you may not need to do that. What I will do too, and I want you to see, is that I will count the bottom 3 layers of the filo dough out, and these will be my top, and I want to make sure that I have those. And what I'll do is I'm going to pinch it under like that, so that when I get to them, I know that I am now ready to just finish the baklava over with. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to butter the pan, and then I'm going to put 3 layers on the bottom without any spices or nuts on them. And then I'm going to start the layering process. But I want to have a nice foundation on the top and the bottom of just plain dough with no spices or anything in it. We're going to start with the put it to the edge. Make sure you butter it. And we'll turn it over. So like I said, for each sheet of dough, you should get about 2 layers for the baklava. So with a 1 pound filo dough, you'll get about 40 layer baklava. Okay, we're going to start with the second sheet. And we'll turn it over. And this is the third sheet. You're going to use all the butter, so don't be afraid to put it in there. This is a very rich and sweet dessert, and when you'll see them at the end when we cut it, that I don't cut big pieces because people can always have 2 pieces if they want. Okay, this is the third sheet. I'm going to start now and putting start with the first layer. I will put the ground cinnamon, then I'll fold it over, put the ground cloves, and then we'll put a layer of nuts on the next sheet. You don't need a whole lot of cinnamon or cloves at any one layer. It's a layered dish, so if you get too much in one spot, it'll even out by the time you get it all done. Like I said, don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be completely covered because it is a layered dish, and if you put too much on it, it's going to be overpowering. Now we're going to put the ground clove. Because it was difficult, I think, when I was making the baklava, about how much cinnamon to put on it. We don't want too much cinnamon or cloves on any one layer because it's an accumulated layered pastry, and it will get plenty of the spices through the accumulation layer. So let's just kind of look at the cinnamon first. And I think that's funny to look at it so you have it on each layer. And we're going to do the cloves, and you don't need as many cloves. Cloves is a stronger spice. As you can see, here's the cloves. So you want a little bit more cinnamon, lighter on the cloves. With the clove, I don't put as much on as I do the cinnamon because it's a stronger spice in it. You don't need as much. Take about, not quite a handful, and put your nuts in. You can even it out. And this layer, when I started putting the ingredients in, was just the ground cinnamon. And when I folded the filo dough over again, I did the ground clove only, and then I folded another sheet of filo dough on it, and then it was the nuts. So now we're going to start all over again, and we're going to now butter this. Every sheet is buttered. But I do want to use all of the ingredients. See, these are fairly fine chopped. I also can do them a little coarser than that, which isn't bad. It just depends on how much you want them. But you don't want them powdery. And I'm going to turn the pan around because sometimes I notice, with me at least, when I'm doing these things, I have a tendency to maybe emphasize so much of it. This way I feel like I'm going to be evening everything out. And so if it's got a little bit too much cloves on that end, when it comes out, then now that end will be here and I can even it out. So maybe about halfway through. If you notice, I'm patting the butter on because I want to keep the filo dough in place so that it's edge to edge as much as possible. Okay, I've got, this is the last sheet, then I'm going to start the final 3 sheets. So I'm planning to put all of the nuts on this sheet. As you can see, this has risen quite a bit from the bottom, so we're near the end. The final layer of the cinnamon. I'm going to turn it around. Now we're going to begin the last 3 sheets, and I am going to put on this next layer the final cloves, and then no more, just buttered sheets. Okay, this is it. I like to cut it in small pieces, like I said. I mean, sometimes at restaurants you get bigger pieces, but this is a really rich and sweet dessert. People could always have a second piece. What I usually do is I cut it into 6 strips, and then I do it at an angle. And almost always, and this size pan comes out to about 8 slices per strip, and I ended up usually about 4 dozen pieces of baklava. So just go down to the middle. They won't always be the same size. I don't worry about that. Just cut parallel to your sides. Okay, we're going to finish cutting. And now I have 6 strips, and at a 45-degree angle, start at the end here, and then go back to the next row at that corner and do a 45-degree angle and straight down. Go to the 3rd row again at a 45-degree angle, start at the corner. Do the 4th row, and by doing it at the 45-degree angle and starting at the corner, you're going to be creating perpendicular or parallel strips so that you're getting your diamonds. They won't always be the same size, and that's okay. And then the last one. And then just at the space that you think you had before, continue to cut. Turn it around and go over here. Okay, so you have about 48 pieces. Now we're going to use all the butter. I'm just going to put the butter down here. So we have the finished baklava ready to bake. Yeah, you put it in the middle shelf in your oven, and it should bake for about an hour to 15 minutes or so. Now it's in about half the way through the baking process, and I'm going to turn it around so that, and if you can see, it's really browning quite nicely, and it's bubbling. And we're going to turn, when we put it back in, we're going to turn it around just to kind of even it out. I think it's brown enough, but yet we still have another 25 minutes or so to go on this. So I'm going to cover it with some foil to get any browner. I think it's just the right brownness, but it still needs some time to cook. Look, this looks like it might be ready. and I'll show you how I can tell. You don't see the butter bubbling around the side, so that tells me that the butter has been absorbed into the filo dough. And I usually just kind of look down, and it looks like it's cooked all the way through. So I'm going to tell you that this is ready to put the syrup on it. When we take the baklava out of the oven, it's hot. We're going to put a cold syrup on it. I don't like to put too much syrup on it. I want it to settle in, and I'm going to show you what I consider to be enough syrup. When I start to see it at the edge there getting a little of the liquid, then I feel like I have enough. I'm going to put it down this way, get the syrup on the other end. Wait a little bit there, then I know. And then I like to do it this way, get it down to the length of the pan. And then I'll do it this way and get it down this way too. If I think I need just a little bit more, I might put another tablespoon or so in, I don't know. But I personally do not use all of the syrup. I like it more on the moist, but not syrupy, thick side of moist, moist but not wet. It looks like it's okay. You let it set, cool, and then you can serve it. I want to dedicate this demonstration to two people, Mrs. Afanasia Mijos from my hometown of Marion, Indiana, and my mother, Mary Tulis Rolis. Making baklava was not one of our family's traditions, but I knew Mrs. Afanasia Mijos would show us, and from her we learned how to make it, and from my mother I learned how to make it. What distinguishes Greek baklava, I understand, from other baklavas is that we use honey. And many of the other Middle Eastern countries use a flavored water like rose water or orange water in their syrup. And as they say in Greek, καλό γουστό.